How's it going, guys? Welcome to
It's
Audio Addiction.
great.
We have
So
the
good,
wise
you
man
cannot
Fears
possibly imagine.
with us, and they can say their names and what they do in the band.
I'll go first. I'm Joe, lead vocalist, and I like to party.
Hello, I'm Tyler, and I'm actually the lead vocalist, and I like to party as well.
No, Tyler, there can only be one lead vocalist, and it's me, and I already said party. You need to choose something else, please.
All right,
Try that again.
all right. We'll let him have it on this one. But I'm Tyler, and I do the vocals.
I'm Paul, and for now I do drums and lyrics, but one day I'm going to usurp the vocal throne and when they're not paying attention, get a mic back on the drum kit. And I wear the fedora and the hat, one per crew, so back off.
Paul's going to be the one-man band eventually. He's going to be that guy that carries around this apparatus of drums and harmonicas and.
That's what I
Until
feel
the
like.
cops called on him.
I also feel like Paul is just an honorary member of Audio Addiction at this point because he's going to be in this video. And then I just
If
really.
you had stock, I would have shares.
You
I
would,
buy
100%.
Audio
You'd be-
Addiction
you-
shares.
Yeah, you would be buying the Audio Addiction shares.
Do you have like a Hall of Fame or like Employee of the Month?
Yeah,
Just-
I'm gonna make one.
Or he won't leave us the hell alone, Paul.
I have it in my apartment. It's just only a photo of Paul because he's the one that has come on the most at this point in like 20 different bands that he has, at this point. So very proud of you, Paul.
Hey, it's a good thing you got going. Thanks for having me.
just you, Paul. I'm just thankful having you.
Yeah.
The first thing, guys, obviously it's been a while since we all chatted, except for Paul, because Paul's just an honorary member at this point. So dab on the haters. But tell them what's been going on. Like we've been. I saw a little teaser here and there. So you got that spicy chef's kiss things going on. So why don't you tell people what's been up?
And Joe, to fill you in, this won't be coming out till late May, so we can talk about anything.
Good, Anakin, good.
Oh my God.
This is great. Is somebody gonna just start talking? Are we all gonna
Well,
stare
I
at
thought
Joe?
Joe was
I thought
taking
Joe
the
was
lead
gonna say,
'cause you did-
As the lead vocalist,
Oh,
Joe, I
Joe.
feel like it's sort of on your shoulders.
Let's see here. As lead vocalist, yeah, we've been working. You know
That's
what I'm
great.
saying?
So we've been working on the
album. We've been working on this album since like late 2016, 2017. I've been tracking since 2017 as well, and it's been done for about a year. Just hitting some roadblocks here and there with getting it out. But yeah, mostly just music and music beyond that even. Just lining it up, you know what I mean? Getting our ducks in a row, slaughter them.
Yeah.
That's quite the. I don't even know what to say. You honestly broke me at this point. I don't even know what to ask you next. That's just you slaughtered
Buckle
the
right
ducks.
in, my friend.
Slaughtered the
Yeah,
ducks.
I remember pretty much working on like pre-production for this album the second the Lost City dropped because I was like getting hyped on music and I was like, all right, here's the next one, and that was in 2017, which is like 3 years now. So that's kind of crazy.
Dude.
It's been
and
a process.
And for the record, like we wrote this album like not fast, but it wasn't that slow. I think we wrote it all in the course of a year, and then we had it tracked. And like Joe said, we had the masters back a year ago in March. So it's been over a year since we had the masters back. But dude, we just hit every complication known to man. Like we started to get music videos done, and then we had one of them get done, but then the other two ran into like complications. Two videographers that we were talking to had like major surgeries that took them out of the game for a while. There's like a reshoot and a last minute pivot away to a different videographer. It was just like this absolute stack of issues, and organizing props and all that stuff contributed a ton of time.
Plus,
but also,
Nathan and Thomas out of the band as well. That
Yeah.
really put us behind a little bit.
well, I would say it sped us up.
Backward, remember, right?
Not a lead vocalist at all.
Hardly lead guitarist, damn it.
This new stuff's just going to be vocals and drums. It's going to be this new wave.
Oh,
We're
you're
really
Portlandia band.
nice.
It's going to be experimental.
I'm very excited for this. You know, it's gonna be kind of like Breathe Carolina, right? Where, you know, old school Breathe Carolina. You got one guy does a screamer,
like Breathe
and you got one guy that does the high clean vocals, and then you got Paul just banging on the drums for some reason.
I'm just running auto tune full time in the back.
On the
I
drums.
was hoping to be the guy. I was just hoping to be the guy that had like the glue cannon or whatever the heck those things are. They're just like glue all over
the t-shirt cannon. Tyler's got the t-shirt cannon duties. Is that what you're telling me?
I want to shoot people directly in the chest with the t-shirt cannon in the front row.
Can you guys do it for the Wise Man Fears like album show? Just have Tyler just like.
What else is he gonna do? Let's be real.
Whoa, damn!
Not vocal.
He ain't the lead vocalist, so.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Joe, get him, Joe. Wow.
I don't know, dude.
I don't know. This band might break up after, like, you know, after all said and done. I feel like Joe's just like taking the hard reins on everybody. He's like
Claiming the throne.
bringing the whip out, my guy. Oof. Heat.
That's how it is. You see how it is in this band now. These boys.
This is the real life, you guys. This is this is the real truth behind the Wise Man Fears. The story you really wanted to know. But I was like looking back at like the video, and I was like, the first interview I did wasn't with any three of you. It was just Nathan. Nathan talked about both Whalebones and the Wise Man Fears, which I thought was very interesting. And then now we're here where we have Nathan's no longer in the band, so it's, you know, it's a little upsetting. You know, I'm very sad about it. You know, honestly, I love Nathan. You know, but I think you guys are just better off without him, honestly.
No doubt.
You know,
Dude, his hair just wasn't long enough, you know? How are you going to be metal with short hair?
That's true. And then Tyler's like,
yeah, I totally have long hair. Dude.
Tyler, you look sweaty. What's going on with you, bud?
I have long hair.
I swear I have it. It's underneath my shirt.
I just have a Snapchat filter on, so you can't see it right now.
The TikTok filter.
Oh, excuse me. But the next thing, guys, obviously you have a bit of news to share with the peeps that you may or may not be signed to something, and you may or may not have a record, you know, in. You know, I'm just trying to. I'm not assuming anything, you know, but you know, I just want to say I got that information. You know what I'm saying?
Joey, two-timer, hit him with the good.
We'd like to announce we are signed to We Are Triumphant Records.
Oh no!
Cut that out. No. Yeah. I'll let second vocalist take the announcement. Just kidding. We're signed to Sharptone
Records. Records.
Which was another piece of this 3-year process of putting out one record, was coordinating the negotiation with them, but then also they were backing some of the music videos and stuff like that. So that all takes coordination and time.
How many Totina pizza rolls did they give you in the deal?
I mean, not enough. Yeah,
Not
which
enough.
is why we're leaving them for We Are Triumphant. that label only pays you in pizza rolls, which is what's
okay,
great
sick.
about them.
1,200 a number, actually,
that's-
and I hear that the government kind of got their inspiration for this 1,200 number from our pizza roll package contract. So
Yeah, really, you can just thank Cody Chambers directly for your Trump bucks.
Beautiful.
yeah,
Shouts to
Fago
Cody.
and pizza rolls.
I missed
That
that.
would be.
I'm surprised he's still in the band too, honestly. So shouts to Cody.
I am too, man.
I'm surprised he's put up with us.
Well, after this, he might not.
Let's hope.
Cody Chambers glues this band together more than we all.
I was gonna say, dude, if Cody left this band, I think it'd be time to call it quits. I don't know what this band would be without him.
Shouts to Cody. I miss you, Cody. I was just kidding.
Yeah.
Please don't
He's
leave
a
the
good
band. So you signed to Sharptone Records. Like, how has that process been? How's Sharptone been treating you guys? Because I hear good stuff. You know, I just had Currents on, and they were just like, yeah, they're like, Sharptone's sick. I love them. You know, and so how does it feel to be on that like roster of like great artists? You know, I think it's a really cool thing. Oh, Joe's got something. I could see him smirking, so I know he's got something special.
Grabbing these. I was gonna roll into a little blunt.
Well, I'll just say, I've really enjoyed working with Sharptone, especially from the like songwriting sense. I was a little worried about like I don't know if they're gonna have any influence on our music, you know, for this first release or whatever, but they just pretty much were super hands off during the whole writing process. And we trust you guys do your thing, and so that was like really refreshing to have. And so we kind of were able to just work on our own, you know, get in the pocket in studio and work on our own without any kind of restrictions or limitations, and so that was awesome. And then yes, the roster is dope. Some of my favorite bands growing up were on that roster. We Came as Romans, all that good stuff. So it's been exciting.
Yeah, and I think there's kind of, I don't know if it's misinformation or if it's just sort of an assumption that, like, you see bands put out songs, and if they go softer, for example, everybody who knows nothing about the band will say, oh, it's the label, like, Rise made them go softer, they wanted this radio core, whatever.
Yeah.
But so that was, like, a concern that we had going into it, and it was refreshing. We've been dealing with the label owner as a band up until, like, the PR rollout. He's been, like, our point of contact, and it's felt good to know that he didn't just pawn us off to like some publicity guy that's on the payroll. He actually has taken an interest in our stuff and the developmental aspect of things. And yeah, like Tyler said, we talked to him. It's like, hey man, we're going to the studio next month. Like, do you want roughs? How does this go? And he's like, literally, don't even send me anything till you have the masters. Like, I trust your guys' vision, and if I hear the roughs, it's just gonna muddy my perception of the record. So like, you guys do what you do, and then we'll push that out. And so that was like a huge relief on our part, was just to hear that they weren't trying to make us more marketable or trying to even like change our branding and all. Like, they're like, you guys have solid branding, and like, we want to build on what you've started. We're not trying to redirect it in any way. So that was exciting.
Joe, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna back up everything they said. / they've been like super patient with all the roadblocks we've hit. Like, you know, there'd be check-ins, but it wasn't like banging on our door like, hey, where's the album, this and that. It was just kind of like, give them the update. They'd be like, okay, great. Like, you know, I haven't heard from you in a while, but this, that, the other. So, yeah, super awesome, super patient. I have nothing bad to say about them.
There you go. Well, that's good. That's high marks. You know, for me, if Joe doesn't like him, it's a no-go. So
Boot him, dude.
I've got boot him. So I'm glad that you guys, you know, got signed to Sharptone. Like, I can't tell you that I've been trying to keep this secret for like a couple months or probably about a year now at least, because I like pawned Paul off to tell me, or not tell me, but like I just said like, I'm going to guess what label you guys are signed to, and you can either nod your head or shake your head no if it's right or wrong. So I was just like, is it Sharptone, boy? And all I saw was like a smirk, and I'm like, yeah, that's it, boy. I was like, got him, guys.
I knew our secret's safe with you, bro.
Thank you. I wasn't going to tell anybody.
Paul,
Was that
you swore an oath.
Paul, can we mute Brandon for a second? We have to talk.
And then Paul's like, please help me, please. No, but I thought I was super excited just because I feel like you guys have been really grinding it out, and I thought like the Lost City was such a fantastic like follow up to, you know, the first record, Castle in the Clouds, and for me, just following your guys' vision over, you know, early 2016 into now 2020. It's just been cool to see you guys kind of grow. I've met most of you at this point, so it's really cool to not only have met you guys doing this, but just like to know that you guys have been working on it for such a long time, and that, you know, when this comes out, this will most likely be out pretty close to when the record's released and stuff like that. So I'm just stoked that you guys have stuff coming out and that you guys are still around making the music and stuff like that, because like I feel like 4 years, that's quite a long gap since like the original time when we had met in Reading, PA. So
dude, thank you. We super appreciate that, dude. We appreciate you supporting us along the way too, man. Like, we were just sort of talking about this before we started recording, but like, it honestly surprises me that people have stuck around. Like, we put out a trailer for our single just to sort of like, and we just made like some posts in the last month to let people know that we're still active and stuff's about to come out. And I honestly didn't know what to expect, because it's just been forever since we actually had anything for someone. But yeah, man, we appreciate you sticking with us, and anybody who has stuck with us, that's super cool.
Blessed. But the next thing, guys, obviously I have to talk about the big animal in the room, which is the next record. So, you know, what can people expect from this new John? Like, what do people, you know, like, are you giving the people what they want? That's what I'm saying. I mean, I can't say anything. Might be a little bit biased. May already have it. Who knows? I'm not going to tell anybody. But I'm just going to say, you know, I'm going to let them speak for themselves, you know?
I think we've done a good job at staying pretty true to our sound based on the last two albums on this new record, but really kind of like refined it, you know, because we were kind of finding that sound in Castle and then really honed in on it in the Lost City, and now it's just like you know, second nature. And when we wrote this one, it just felt so freaking great. So I'm pretty stoked on how it came out, and I think this is probably, as far as the songwriting goes, the most proud I've been of any of our stuff.
Definitely.
Dude, yeah. Take it
Wow.
away,
Oh,
Joe.
go ahead. No, it's okay. No, I'm not leaving vocals or anything.
The big time save. I think each record has been, we learn more and more about ourselves as writers and what process works for us. And for this one, like we've gotten to have more fun with this one and be more explorative, but also still more quintessentially us from a sonic standpoint than ever. So like we went into the Lost City sort of being like, well, it'd be cool if we did like, you know, some maybe Egyptian stuff. I don't know. We'll play with that sort of corner. And then this time coming into this one, we're like, here are like some Iron Age Celtic instruments that we want to pipe into these songs, and we just like have a more and more refined idea about what we want each time, and it helps like the story arc for this record caps off stuff that we started talking about like writing for in 2014. So it's been like a very sort of a long time coming in story terms, and that was a super fun part of it as well, is to sort of round off the trilogy in that aspect.
Yeah, definitely. I think there really is just elements of like both of the first two records, and I think you'll like especially hear that on this title track, so make sure you peep that.
And references. Definitely some references in there too to the previous album.
Sir.
For sure.
Yeah, it's just consistently heavy while still melodic and catchy, and just I love it. I definitely like, I know every band says it, but it feels like it's definitely our best one yet. Like I'm very excited on
I can
this.
attest to that. I feel like you guys kind of rocked it. You know, I feel bad Nathan's out of the band. You know, you just lost a vocalist that, you know, really added a lot of like vocal diversity to, you know, a six vocalist band. Like it's very tough. You know, I feel like just that missing sixth voice, you know, hurts me. You know, it's like
It's okay. We have like a Nathan soundboard now where we can just type in whatever we want him to sing, and it'll just spit it back.
It's just like one of these, like you have like just like a pad, like
yeah,
like one of these pads here, and you just like hit, like he's got different voice pads. You just hit that, just, you know, and it's got got like one of those atypical, like, you know, Paul, like those atypical like Nathan lines. You're like, you know, that's like the real soothing, like soft voice. And you got something with a little bit more growl in it. You know, I got you. I
Most of it is hype man shit. Like, yeah! Like,
it's a program called Nathanton Live, and you'll hear a lot about it probably in the next couple of years.
That's gonna be interesting. So how do you think it's gonna affect your live sets, guys? So are you gonna have like a hologram version of like Nathan? Is it gonna be like Tupac? You know, or are we gonna have like?
It's gonna be Nathan just like thick. He's gonna have like a freaking dumpster on the back of him in a hologram form.
Damn, they're gonna be a thick boy.
We've been working with LucasArts, and we actually bought their patented technology for the holograms during those meetings that they would have all the time. You know.
Yeah,
so.
The same tech that brought you Jar Jar Binks against your will is bringing Nathan Kane.
So make sure to come see us on tour 2020, 2021.
Blow your freaking mind, dude.
You're gonna blow my freaking mind. I've never seen never seen three C's thick Nathan before in my entire life, but the boy gonna see it. It's coming. It's gonna be, he gonna be thick. So I'm very stoked.
Nobody tell Nathan that we've even mentioned. anything about him.
Yeah.
This will truly test if Nathan actually watches my stuff, because if he does actually watch it, then I will get a message about this. So I'm gonna
And maybe a
still leave it
YouTube
at-
flag.
maybe a YouTube flag, because we did mention. Oh boy, I'm not even gonna. We're gonna.
Pressure's on, Nathan.
We should just call Nathan now, right now.
I'm sorry, dude.
In this video, you have 48 hours to respond to Brandon, or the crush of your life will come and kill you in your sleep at midnight. You better respond.
Oh my god. And then the next thing, guys, obviously gotta talk about. So Paul, you kind of alluded to something I was gonna ask, which was, so is this kind of like the end of the character that you guys have kind of created, like the story arc that you guys have kind of created over, the 3-album arc? Do you feel like this is going to be like, is this the end, quote unquote, and then you're going to be starting a new story arc with like the new record? Or, because I had asked Tyler originally when we were talking about this stuff, and I was like, Tyler, Joe, I want to have you on, because I've had Paul on so many times, and he was just like, oh yeah, well, about that, Paul writes a lot of the story arc stuff, so you're gonna have to have Paul on again. So I was like, oh no, I'm just kidding. I was like, all right, fine, we'll have Paul on.
Paul is definitely
the
mastermind behind these concepts, and he just crafts this stuff so beautifully. And I know with these 3 albums, it's kind of our trilogy that we're rounding off here, and a lot of them are really meant to be kind of perpetually cycled into each other. I know Paul could speak like really, further into that, but that's kind of the gist of it. Is there's not really an end. It kind of is representative of a circle of life almost that continuously feeds back into this loop. So.
Yeah, that's honestly like a really good way to put it, Tyler. Just like a feedback loop. But it's as far as like the end of the story, this is like a sort of pocket that's been completed now, that's existing in like a little ecosystem. But at least so far, the stuff that we've been planning for the next record, like I think stuff is always going to brush shoulders with each other story-wise for the content. So there will always be like bridges and parallels back to stuff, even if in this record, for example, the characters are all new, but there are references and sort of encounters with old characters. But this record takes place like 1,000 years in the future relative to the Lost City and Castle in the Clouds, whereas those two were back to back essentially. So like yes and no. This is the end of the trilogy for these specific characters. They're probably going to stay here. But we've got some fun ideas for this next record and how to expand the universe and do some cool stuff stepping outside of what we've done before.
Is this the Wise Man Fears cinematic universe? Is that what we're talking about? And we're gonna have, are we gonna have like
LucasArts? We've been in LucasArts.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds kind of hokey, but it's like that cinematic universe feel is what we're going for, is having like world building that extends through all the records, and there's sort of like a consistent baseline of certain elements that's going to run through them.
I know, because you're like heavily influenced by Make Them Suffer and shouts to Sean, my boy, his like his writing skills, and just like how he's able to kind of craft stuff. So I'm glad that his writing abilities has kind of I guess graced his presence with your knowledge of fantasy and stuff like that. And I always think it's very interesting to see how like the records kind of progressed too, because I was like, even going back when I got sent the new record, I was like going back to check out old records to kind of like be thorough in like the review that I do, because I have a lot of time before the record comes out. And I was going through each kind of pocket of like Castle in the Clouds, going through Lost City and stuff like that. So I feel like with each different record that you guys have done, it's just been a little bit different, but also like I feel like the core sound that you guys have been known for, I still think it's very much there. And I feel like with bands sometimes they get a little bit afraid, and we were talking about it in another interview that I did with Paul, was with like bands I feel like are afraid to kind of go out and do different stuff because they're just like, oh well, and especially if a band of like your band where you kind of been in like hiatus mode for a little bit and then coming back with this new record. Did you have any fears that you feel like all the band, like the people that like supported you guys after Lost City, did you have any fears that maybe they wouldn't support you with this new release? Not to say that your fans wouldn't, because I feel like, you know, you got the fans that I've seen have been really supportive of what you do, but did you have any kind of inclination that you're like, oh my God, this is taking a lot longer? You know, do fans still really want us to be like putting music out? Are we like, people are like, and Paul was telling like, you know, you would get messages and be like, yo, when, or is this album coming out? When is this album coming out and stuff? So, you know, did you ever feel at a point where you're just like, oh my God, like we may never like release this? And not to be like negative, but just like, you know, some shit happens and, you know, that's how it goes. So do you feel like now that like everything's kind of finalized and everything's kind of like in a row at this point, do you guys feel a little bit more like, I guess, like happy knowing things are going to be coming out, you know?
Dude, for sure.
Absolutely.
Sorry. I just was going to say, I know kind of like what Paul was saying is we get messages on the band page at least weekly, and we all individually get messages, and even just like friends and family and stuff too. Like everybody has been super supportive. Like, hey man, it's been a minute. Like, where's that new stuff? I'm excited for it. And like that enthusiasm hasn't been lost from anybody I've talked to. And like one thing too, you know, that we really tried to kind of do still today and really in the beginning too when we were releasing Castle was just really build that fan base that was kind of more engaged with us. We weren't really trying to just go for a blanket approach. We took time to like message people and talk to every single person, like genuinely talk to them and be authentic with them, and not just like, hey, check out my band, see ya, and like And so a lot of those people are you know, they're more forgiving when you're a little late on releasing something. And so the enthusiasm is definitely still there from all of our listeners and just from the people that have been already commenting on things these last few weeks when we've been starting to promote things. It's been encouraging. So
I can tell you I messaged Paul so many times about this record. I almost felt guilty to the point where I kept asking him about this record. I was like, yo, send me the record, please. Please send me it. Send me it, Paul.
The thing is, like, it feels awful to like not be able to share with people. Like, I felt, dude, I would legit lose sleep at night. Like, whenever I would think about like, dude, we still don't have a release date set, I would like get this like anxious rush and be like, I need to email some people tonight to make this, like, speed up these processes and make this happen. But I mean, to answer your question, absolutely, dude. I was pretty scared that a lot of people were going to sort of jump ship, and especially with the way Facebook works, and they are so they're mean about how they distribute reach, and they want you to play their game, which is
fear too, man. Yeah. Just the social media reach.
Yep, exactly. And so but then also we like, you know, we play what we're calling fantasycore music, and that just sounds like something that people be like, oh yeah, I listened to that in high school, but like not so much, you know, like metalcore in general, like sort of has a cliche around it of people being like, oh, I used to listen to that, like, hey, yeah, like I used to like A Day to Remember. That's cute. But yeah, it's like a lot of people that love to talk about how they've grown out of it, and so that scared me as well, because, you know, 3 years record to record is plenty of time for people's musical preference to shift, and so yeah, so you're sort of hoping that people are still as excited about it as you are, but you don't know until you start hitting the ground again.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, there's definitely been like some stress on my end with all that as well. I co-sign all that, but I don't know. I think that the people that hear this record, I think, especially if it's like day one listeners, I think they're gonna enjoy it, just because like it still just has like all the elements of our older stuff while still kind of like, you know, pushing the boundaries of like what we can do as a band. And I think whoever hears it will see that, and I think they'll enjoy it, you know, whether it's like the biggest thing or not. So yeah, I think I'll be happy with the response either way. You know?
Yeah, no, I think that's I think it's something to talk about too, because like like I said, like for me, it's been a while. It's just since I've known, like I've seen Paul. Paul's stayed at my house before, and I was just like, "Yo, can you just give it to me right now? You're right here," you know. But like it was just cool to, it was cool to experience those sorts of things, and like we were talking about earlier, just being a fan since like the earlier days when you guys were doing stuff, and you know, it's cool to see how, you know, obviously I didn't want it to take as long as just as much as anybody else has, but I just feel like, you know, now that it's finally out, like I can be like, I could share the shit out of this because they're finally releasing it and it's not a joke. It's not April Fool's anymore, you know, like it's like really happening. And it's cool to see that because I know like you guys were kind of, especially like you, Paul and Nathan, were like pretty early on or adopters for like audio addiction. So I know for me, it's like, you know, I love seeing you guys finally putting it out and like doing that sort of thing. So, you know, obviously speaking a little bit more on the record, what's one track that kind of changed the most, you know, at the beginning half towards like now the final product? And then what's one that is your favorite? Like you gotta go. So what's one that you were just like, if you were like a new Wise Man Fear fan, which one track would you be like, yo, you guys should listen to this one when it comes out?
I
That's
think
a great
the one
question.
that changed the most. Oh, sorry, Paul.
No.
Dude,
I was still thinking. I'm glad you said something.
Yeah, I think the one that changed the most is Valley of Kings. I remember like demoing that with like Tyler and Nathan, and it just changed so much to the point. I don't even think we used like half of what we initially wrote for it.
Because you wrote like a whole intro riff. Joe, you had like a whole guitar structure. We kept like tweaking it and rebalancing things, and
it just changed so much. I love like the ending is like the same as I always had pictured it would be. Like it just really wraps into the first two albums really well, I think. But as far as one that I had to show like a new listener, I would probably put them on to the single we drop on May 1st, which is Relics of Nilux. It's the first track on the album. That's probably what I would send to them. It's just got like, it's got a little something for any heavy music listener in it, I think.
And some R&B listeners.
Yeah, seriously, like it's just got these moments that like are on the brink of like deathcore, and then it'll go into just some like Paul said, like very R&B little riffs from Tyler. It's super nice.
Then clean vocals come in and absolutely obliterate anybody's interest in the song.
Yeah, that's right, man.
Skip that back immediately. No, I definitely agree on Valley of Kings. That whole process and just totally different from what we originally started with. And then ironically, my favorite song on the album was actually Forest of Illusions, which I remember like sitting with Joe at my house and we were doing some pre-production, and like we were kind of going through like some of the songs that we had already had like some instrumental demos on and stuff. And Cody had actually like written out most of that, like that song for the most part on Forest of Illusions. And I remember listening to it and we were both like, I just don't like see a direction for it. And like, I don't know like what we could write to this. And like, we both like, we skipped it and then like moved on and ended up writing something else. And now we came back to it and we were like, what the heck were we thinking? Like, this is freaking dope. Like, were we high? And we ended up, you know, like kind of piecing it together and cutting some pieces and editing pieces and throwing in that little Wiseman Sphere eclectic mix. And then now it's like after this all said and done, I'm like, you know what? I like a lot of the jams on the album, but that one for me is personally probably my favorite.
Yeah, dude. I think I have to agree with you, Tyler, as far as like that song. If I were to just like listen to any song from the record, I think that one I would enjoy just like listen for myself the most. Like the melody writing is super cool, and then the balance of cleans and harsh I think is really interesting. And dude, it has like for me that moment in it towards like the middle end where it's just like, I don't know, that's what we shoot for as a band. I feel like is there's a fantasy feel, but it's super overused, but it feels epic. It feels like you're part of a large-scale fantasy world for a second when you hear the middle of that song, and I think that's awesome. Like, that's what we aim for. And I agree with the guys. Like, Valley of Kings was definitely the title track that got flipped around the most. because we sort of walked into it. Joe had like this whole guitar skeleton laid out. I had like a bunch of lyrics that conceptually fit Valley of Kings, and we were trying to sort of mash a square peg into a round hole and make the lyrics fit this guitar structure that Joe had, because it was like an awesome guitar part, and we still have it like booked in our demos folder. But we just like slowed the tempo, and we swapped some riffs, and then Joe had some great ideas just about continuity, looping in elements from the other two records, and really giving it this like total there's like this send off, rounded off full circle feedback loop, and I'm just super excited. I didn't know, like when we started tracking that one, I was like, I don't know, and then by the end of it, I was like, okay, that freaking slaps.
We sat out in that hotel lobby that we were at during the studio and wrote like the entire melody for that song.
Like 3 in the morning, like very softly.
The dude working the desk, just like looking over at us. We're like singing very quietly. Like, man, we're gonna get kicked out of here,
dude. That hotel was a whole experience, though. There's a hotel in, I guess it's still technically in Westerville, but it's like on the outskirts, called, I think it's like the Grand Larson Magnum Larson. It's like got a weird name. And dude, we checked in, like it was one of those deals that we got on Hotwire or some application where they don't tell you what it is until you buy it. And so we bought it and we showed up, and it's like a place that peaked in the 80s for sure. And the decor has not changed a bit, and they probably haven't filtered the water in the hot tub since then. And we go into the first room, and there was like a bed bug crawling across the bed. And so we killed it, brought it up to the front desk, and we're like, hey guys, we found a bed bug in the room. They're like, I don't know about that. And then we showed it to them. They're like, I don't think that looks like a bed bug. And I pulled up a picture of a bed bug, or Nathan maybe, on a phone and showed them. They're like, we can get you a different room if you like. And we're like, yeah, we'll be taking your other room.
Yes. Yeah, right.
So it was pretty jank.
Oh, but it had some of the sickest amenities. It had the pool, the workout room. It had the arcade, which actually didn't exist, that we all got super excited about, because like on their website and even like in the hallways, they had like posters for like, come visit our arcade, and we were like, sick. And we walked all over the place, and like the one arcade was like a claw machine that was out of order, like tucked away.
Like I said, I don't think they touched it since the 80s. Like back then, it was probably a rip roaring.
That speaks for the type of deals you'll get at Hotwire.
It's a roll of the dice for sure.
It is a roll of the dice.
We were like, oh, sick. Like they got this like full serve, like breakfast that we're gonna go check out every morning. And every morning it was like these like off-brand Otis Spunkmeyer muffins and bananas, and that was it. And then they had
like oatmeal that you had to prepare yourself.
Yes. Yeah, and they had a K-cup machine that you could like make your coffee in. I was like, okay, this is the most legit part about it, but it was just, well, I'll take it. I'll take it over no food. So I'm not complaining. But it was just like we walk in and it's like a legitimate restaurant layout. And I was like, oh shoot, where's the biscuits and gravy? Where's the bacon? No, Otis Spunkmeyer muffins and bananas. That's
everything there was prepackaged. Like they had those like peanut butter orange cracker packs you could get.
No.
Yeah, like that. Bananas were the only thing that weren't like in plastic wrap, and then muffins and nothing. It was so bizarre. I was like, at a point, it can't be profitable to do that over having like a bowl of real fruit. It's like, I don't know, whatever.
Well, like you said, they're stuck in the 80s, so I guess I feel that is the most appropriate thing for that.
Absolutely. Single-use disposable plastic was all the rage.
There we go. Yeah, I do feel like, as you guys were mentioning, like there is like hints of past records, like especially Valley of the Kings, like towards the end. I was just like, this sounds like really familiar, and I can't figure out why. And I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody because it's very interesting. But I like had to rewind it, and I was just like, no, that they didn't do it. They didn't do it. And then I was just like, okay, now I'm like, they did do it. They did it to me. So I was very stoked on that. And then Tyler and I were talking before you guys hopped on, and we were talking about one track in particular with a certain solo. Was that for the memes, or were we like just partially for the memes, and then you're like, well, like what if we actually added it in as like, a thing?
Like kind of like what we were talking about is we're doing these like little studio updates and tried to post some things on our Facebook page when we were in studio, and that came up and we were like, hey, this is kind of awesome. And so we posted it to our Facebook page and got some good reception on it. We were like, why not? And so that's kind of really what sparked it. But it was believe me, it was a long debate. It was a very long debate.
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
Is it going in?
Yeah, I think that's honestly how a lot of the fantasy elements first enter the equation in a similar way, because literally we'll track out a song, like get all the guitars, get the bass, drums, and then usually we'll get the vocals in too, and then we'll go back and sort of drop in fantasy elements on a record. And so we'll have like Splice and Nexus and all, like Johnny's got a bunch of programs that we'll use to be like, okay. And this time around, we were a little more organized. We're like, all right, we want like a zither on this track, and we want a heart sweep here, just like had it a little more narrowed in. And one of the like,
we would leave it up to you to come up with like the most ridiculous instrument that nobody even knew existed.
Dude, I was literally just like googling like ancient Celtic instruments, and I was like, a bodhran or whatever, like the goatskin drum, why not? And pan flute was on the list, and so I was like, all right, and I almost felt like embarrassed to tell Johnny. I was like, okay, is there like a pan flute sample on Splice we could mess with? And sure enough, he found something, and we pitch shifted it and fit the tempo to the song, and we played it through it, and dude, we were just laughing for a solid like 5 straight minutes. And then, yeah, like Tyler said, we posted it to our Facebook, and there was a lot of positive reception, but like in a not joking way. And I think that's the thing that made us sit there and be like, wait, what if we listened to this seriously and tried putting vocals? Because that one we didn't have vocals on yet. So we're like, what if we just tried it? And we tried it out, and it was like, I don't know, that's pretty dumb. And then the more times we listened to it, we're like, that's actually like, that kind of hits different.
Yeah.
I remember Johnny said something like, if you guys don't use this, I 100% will. So
for a Bill Murray track.
Yeah, right. So I was like, I mean, he thinks it slaps, so that's a good
right.
I'll be honest. So like I said, I have the record now. Don't, if somebody wants to buy it off me, it's sales to the highest bidder. So we're gonna start at $10,000.
45 cents or $10,000.
$10,000. No, I'm just kidding.
Kingdom Links already has it. It's a lot.
But I was saying to Tyler, I was like, I listened to the track, like listened to the whole album, but I listened to that track, and I got to the first time listening to it, I got to the track, and I played it, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And then we got to the breakdown part, and then I literally just stood there and was like sitting right here at my computer desk, and I was just like, did they do it? Did they actually do it? And I like literally took my headphones off and like hooked it up my computer, walked out of my room, and was just like, "There's no way. There's no way. They didn't do it. They didn't do it. This is not real. I'm having a stroke right now." And I was just like, "I'm gonna rewind it." So I rewrote the track, and I went to listen to it again. And I did the same exact thing, and I was like, "There's no way!" I was gonna like message Paul and be like, "Did I get like a bad copy of this? Like, is this has like pan flute in it? I don't know why that's in there." And then I went to listen to it again, like in a serious way, and I was just like, "Nah, this hits different." So I was very on board with it. So I just wanted to give that. I feel like people who when this comes out, they'll be shocked. I feel like
Yeah, dude, that's one of the tracks that I'm most excited to show people now, because it's different. And we had like a similar and smaller version of this conversation way back. Like, I think this was before Castle in the Clouds even came out, but we were like, hey, should we really lean into the fantasy thing and like call ourselves fantasycore and like devote to a concept and a sound that reflects fantasy elements? And basically, like, at the end of the day, we're like, the riskiest thing that we could possibly do is to not be memorable. And if we do this, people will remember us, but like otherwise you die in the sea of a million obscure metalcore bands. So it was kind of the similar decision making process for this. It was like, ooh, is this risky? Are people going to think it's funny? And it's like, wait, the risky thing would be if we didn't have anything that like made people go back to this record and show their friends a song from this record. And it freaking works. Like, it sounds awesome in my opinion. So
Yeah.
it was, after we thought about it, it was kind of a no-brainer, but at first we were definitely like divided about it for sure.
And then how did you guys go about picking like Celtic instruments? Because I know like Paul just said like they did Egyptian for like Lost City, and I don't know what type of instrumentals you're choosing in terms of Castle in the Clouds. But like, how do you go about choosing these things? Like, why was it specifically like, let me do Celtic instruments? I don't know anything about them. Let's do this shit. Like what was the thought process behind that? Because I think for me, I never really knew the answer to it. So I'm curious, like, and did you have any other options prior? Like, do you feel like you could have done like, like traditional like Japanese instruments or like something like, I feel like that'd be, not to give you any ideas for future references, so, unless I'm paying royalties or whatever, but I just think it's like super cool that you guys choose to do like as you say, play into that whole like fantasy core aspect of what you guys do. So I'm just curious how you go about choosing like the overdubs and the instrumentals and stuff like that.
For sure. I think the sort of sonic theme usually matches the story theme. So for Castle in the Clouds, our approach was like sort of like medieval European, so like Gregorian choirs and, like just like that whole realm, like Dark Age sounding. And then, but that was also like sort of our first foray into the space. So it was a little bit more mixed up, and there were elements from all over. Yeah, it was a pretty widespread, but that was sort of the core of it. It's like, well, whatever, Gregorian-ish stuff. And then Lost City came around, and we kind of wanted to be a little more intentional about it. And the band Shokran was a huge influence. I know Joe has listened to them a bunch, and I freaking Tyler too.
Got them on my workout playlist, dude.
Dude, they're so sick. But they and Born of Osiris have both demonstrated that Egyptian stuff just works with metal for some reason, and so we're like, let's mess with that. But also, that storyline is sort of an Atlantis parallel. And in like, to sort of do research for that record, I went and read, Plato wrote a dialogue called Timaeus, and it's all about like this old Egyptian priest is telling this dude Timaeus about the city Atlantis. And so there's like that Egyptian connection that just made sense. And it sort of calls back to like really ancient history instead of like, the 1200s or whatever. So it made sense there. And then for this record, this is like the least metal thing ever, but Celtic, because there was this Celtic woman track that I heard, and I was like, oh, they have this like goatskin drum circle dancey track. Then I was like, this would be like so insane if we got, some harsh vocals and some juggy guitars on top of this. And like looked around, and there's not that many bands that have done like Celtic metal. Like Celtic metal is a genre, but it's not been put into like a core band with modern production and like a new twist. It's all sort of like your Monomarth sounding like that pocket where it's like Celtic metal is basically black metal with bagpipes, and it usually sounds very like it's hard to listen to. But to answer your question,
Monomarth is not happening then, I guess.
We should be so lucky. To answer your question though, actually one of the things that we were looking at going into this record was doing like traditional Japanese sounding instruments, but that was right when Ocean's 8 Alaska put out, is it Hansha is the name of the record? Or Hikari?
I think it's Hikari, yeah. Hansha's one of the songs,
they like smoked that. After they did that, and I was like, that like if we ever do a Japanese sonic theme, we have to let that record cool down for some years, because that sounds so cool, and we don't want to look like we're ripping them off. It just so happened to come out while we were in the studio, and I was like, are you kidding me? But it's basically the whole Celtic feel. That to me, they have like this awesome mysticism and sort of like pre-written history vibe that synced up with the story that we're telling here, and the spirit of it, I think, transferred really well. And the sounds we choose are definitely complementary to the story we're trying to tell.
I feel like that. Yeah, I feel like they worked themselves super well into the tracks, and I'm glad you guys didn't go with like a Japanese theme on like this record in terms of like instrumentals and stuff. Because as you mentioned, like just the irony of that is hilarious. But I also feel like I feel like the Celtic sort of instruments, and now I'm gonna have to like when I'm listening to it now, I'm gonna have to like really like listen hard for like all of this sort of those sorts of elements. I just feel like it works a lot better than, if you just decided to go with the Japanese one. So I'm excited for, everybody to check it out. Next record they're doing a Bollywood record. So get very stoked for that. They're going to then have like damn posses. It's going to be tight, all full
You're looking
production.
at the band right here. Nathan's out, Cody's out, Thomas is out. We're just going straight Bollywood, dude.
Straight Bollywood hits, baby. The next question, guys, I guess, who are some of the bands that kind of influenced your sound? Because I've had Paul on many times and he's talked about his influences, but more specifically Joe and Tyler, like, who influenced you guys on this record? Paul, if you still want to answer, you can. Didn't mean to call you out like that.
Oh no, I'll pull up my Spotify and think while those guys tell you.
So your boy's pretty basic. I love like a lot of the super catchy, kind of melodic metalcore releases that have kind of been out recently. I guess I say recently, and it's already been 4 years. I feel like an old man now. But I See Stars, their Treehouse album, I was like, this is freaking fire. And that's kind of when I started falling in love with Devin Oliver's voice and his work. And so that was a big influence vocally for me. And then like always, like since junior high or whenever I started listening to this kind of music, Day to Remember has always been in there for me. I love Jeremy McKinnon's work. I always think his melodies are freaking dope. So those would probably be the two biggest ones. And then there's just like a lot of little ones too, as far as like the songwriting side of things too, instrumentally, that kind of influenced me. It's a big eclectic mix of a bunch of different bands. I really like Oh Sleeper. They're a big one for me, and so that was some of that stuff in there. And then I like to kind of get into some of the more hardcore side of things, or like Comeback Kid. I just was listening to them earlier today. They had some solid stuff, and like even like more punk, like Rise Against and stuff like that too. So that's all like big influences for me musically that I write like.
Yeah, same. Vocally, I don't know. I mean, always Adam Warren, Oceano, man. Ben Durr from Shadow of Intent is just a fucking monster. Like, I don't know. I like to, I don't know. There's just like, I don't know, a good handful of bands where like I hear their vocalists and I'm like, ooh, man, I want to curl my scream like that, or like, I don't know, I like how he like does those, etc. Brand Sacrifice is another one for sure. Yeah, I also listen to like a decent amount of hip hop, and I sort of use that on a few of the tracks to hit some like pockets on breakdowns, just to keep that like have like a nice cadence flow to it. You can definitely hear it on Relics. Yeah, stuff like that. Just groovy deathcore too.
Echo the hip hop / pop side too. That's like, I listen to everything, but that's always been kind of like my guilty pleasure. Is like, I know it sounds basic, but I just love some of the pop music out there, and so that definitely was an influence as well. Some of that songwriting out there.
Dude, and sort of like mirroring what Joe had said, I think something that creates at least an interesting sound is when you take a band like the two that I have in mind are Shadow of Intent and Born of Osiris, that have like really cool sonic elements, like instrumentally very interesting, but then like repurpose that in a world where clean vocals are okay to have, and like there's no deathcore gatekeeper kids that are whining about whiny vocals. So yeah, it's kind of fun to like try to pull the best from different genres, and yeah, it's like pop and deathcore, but also like the Egyptian Chokran and Born of Osiris thing, and then Shadow of Intent has like a bunch of awesome electronic elements. Brand of Sacrifice does the same thing. And just like take things like Brand of Sacrifice probably could never have like radio power ballad, but we could do something adjacent to that, and we can still borrow from Brain of Sacrifice, and that's like a huge advantage. So trying to pinpoint bands like an Enterprise Earth song with sick clean vocals, you know. Yeah,
I feel that. Like I felt that in one track with a certain feature that, you know, I'm gonna let people find out because I don't wanna spoil it. But it's pretty tight, you know. I'm gonna just leave it at that. And I just felt like there's kind of a mix. Like I've always appreciated Tyler's like clean vocals. They're just so like there's just something about his vocals that just like cut through a song. And I know I've like reviewed, which I will probably go back and review Castle in the Clouds just to hype up this record.
Thank you, dude.
Because I already did Lost City because, you know, dab on the haters. But, you know, like I feel like with Tyler's stuff, like his cleans remind me, and I'm glad you mentioned like Icy Stars, it reminds me a lot of Devin Oliver and you know, rest in peace Kyle from We Keep His Romans, like his higher like register. And there's, I mean, obviously like people are going to be like keyboard warriors and be like, oh my God, this guy's trying to be like Kellen Quinn or something like that. And I'm like, nah, family. He trying to be like Devin Oliver, which is like better. And you know, with Joe, like I'm like his screams like make me want to go take a shit, you know, like it's just like so like his lows are so fucking heavy that I'm just like whatever's in my body completely disappears, you know. And I just wonder why I go through so many pairs of underwear all the time. Now I know why. It's because of Joe, because his screams are so low that I think he actually hit the brown note actually. So I'm very very proud of him. Yes. But no, seriously, like his screams are like to me like some of the most like underrated shit that I've heard from anybody in like a hot minute. Dude, like
it's pretty ridiculous to be in the same room as him. Like it resonates in the room. Like it's pretty wild. Which is
His range is nuts. Like literally on this record alone, like is just insane. And I mean, I feel like people are just gonna be like, "Yo, man, you're just hyping it up. Like it's not that good." I'm gonna be like, "Family, you don't have the record, so you don't know. So until that record comes out, I could be lying. Firefall. Firefall. That's the one to check out." But like I genuinely think like there's just something about it that is just like you were saying. There's elements of like pop. And, you know, again, rest in peace, Nathan. He had some really great vocal parts, but God rest his soul, you know, up in heaven. Miss that dude so much.
Dude, even the contrast of his and Tyler's, like Nathan has a super textured voice. Tyler's voice is like clear as a bell, and it just cuts through a mix. So like being able to play back and forth with them is always super fun whenever it can happen.
I feel like in the one track, as I pull it up and not show the computer screen because you know your boy trying to get flagged here, but I felt like
Sharptone Records will take you down.
Sharptone Records will take you, they will. You know, I felt like the one track somebody breaks through my window in my apartment. I'm like, holy shit. But I felt like with like tracks like the River and the Rock, like where it's a little bit slower, like because I've always appreciated kind of the slower tracks that you guys have done, especially with Nathan and Tyler just doing like the clean vocals. There's just something about it that just like you were saying, Paul, like Nathan has this like real like kind of textured like fuller voice, and then like Tyler has this kind of like higher, like more like
a eunuch,
it's like exactly, that's what I meant. I just feel I can't even I'm
gonna head out.
Tyler's gone.
See a second vocalist.
But I feel like, you know, the high vocal is just really cut, and there's something about like Nathan's lower registers and when the harmonies just hit, you know, it just works somehow. And the way that you guys kind of like, even with Joe kind of being worked into some of, you know, like when you have Nathan coming into like, you know, kind of like mid-range vocals, and you have Tyler coming in with those high range vocals, and then you got Joe just screaming his brains out. Like, you know, I think it's just something about all of those things that just hit a different way when you're like listening to them all together, you know.
It's the jewel smoke is what it is.
You know what I'm saying? Got my magic sauce in this.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I'm
that's what it
saying?
was. That's how he got them scrams, dudes. Just
Big
guys,
time.
just so you know, that's how you get the best scrams is vaping.
I don't condone that.
I'm not condoning vaping.
Destroying your lungs.
But the next thing, guys, since Paul has been on so many times, I feel the likelihood of not asking the same questions because Paul knows. But what would be one artist that people wouldn't necessarily associate with you that you listen to? Like if they were just like, because I know Paul's in two different bands. And like, you know, he's given, you know, his kind of indie, he's got his indie-ish band and then he's got this band, you know. So like what's one artist that's like, you know, people would be very shocked to know that you are just like, yo, I'm about that shit.
I'm gonna dive in head first in this one,
Oof.
and my answer would be Poppy. There's just something about
Ooh,
that
interesting.
that hits because I listen to like such an eclectic mix of things, but I feel like I literally bounce between like metalcore pretty much purely or like pop music, and then here's like Poppy that's like, what are you doing? But it's fire, dude. I love it.
That should be your slogan. What are you doing? And that's
I still don't know what I'm doing.
by
So.
Tyler Eads.
Exactly.
Oh man, I like Poppy as well, dude. Poppy's dope. I don't know. Like I said, I listen to like a lot of rap, which I don't know. I guess the heavy screamer dudes don't always do. I'll say NLE Choppa.
Ooh, interesting.
MLG
like
Chopper?
MLG Pro?
MLG. I'm not like heavy into him, but he's got a track I like, so we're gonna go NLE Choppa for shock value. Can't wait for this to go viral. What was the white man's fear?
I think for me, Brandon, we've talked about this a little bit before, but I really, really like piano music. So there's a dude called Jason Van Wyck who has two albums. One's called Opacity, one's called Kept. And that is like, I listen to that so often. I'm kind of like Tyler, where it's like I'm either listening to like contemporary classical chill piano or like heavy stuff. So yeah.
That's a vibe check, guys. I'm so proud of you. You did it. You know, give it up for the guys here in the Wise Man Fears. Pass the vibe check. And the next question, guys. Obviously, since you've been on a tour hiatus for forever, if you guys were to, you know, have a dream tour lineup, who would be on it?
I mean, I gotta be a little kid and say that my dream is to always be on a tour with a Day to Remember, but that would be dope. That's just me, though. That's just me.
would be.
Yeah, that is just you, man.
That's me, That's me right here.
Paul quits the band today.
Yeah. Dude,
That's a
I
tough
think
one.
that is right now I'm gonna say Make Them Suffer is like up there for sure because they are about to drop the best record of the year and I'm very, very excited for it. Yeah. Other than that, I think it'd be fun to tour with Shokran because nobody is like them, and I think that's super cool, and they would make sense on a bill with us.
Shokran, get at him.
I was definitely gonna say Make Them Suffer as well. They've always been up there on that list. I think that'd be sick. Just based on like other bands I listen to, like Alpha Wolf would be super sick.
Ooh.
I love that new Reflections, man. Brandon
Yeah.
Sacrifice, baby.
Brand of Sacrifice.
Kyle, do it. Do it, Kyle. Kyle and Brandon Sacrifice. I know you watched this. I know you're a fan of Audio Addiction. Let's do this. Let's make it happen. You're in
He's
like
got
20 different bands at this point. Let's do it.
But they're all so good.
They're all really good. So shout outs to Kyle for Brandon Sacrifice. Feel free to come on, you know, if you want to. But you should do this tour first. and then you should come on. But the last thing, guys, the most important thing, tell them about the Wise Man Fears, what you got going on, maybe a record release date, and that's it.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, shout out the fans. You know what I'm saying? Shout out the fans, the day one supporters. Record May.
Well, we got to talk about Joe after this. We got to talk about Joe.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is it the 29th?
Yeah.
29th album drop.
First single, May 1st. By now, you've heard it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
You
you've
should
been
have.
listening now.
Go check it out in the links above and over here. Smash
For
that
sure.
like button.
Sharptone Rex.
May 29th, Sharptone Records. Also, this one, dude, I know we say this for like all of our albums, but for sure listen to this album in order because there's a whole lot of stuff going on that is way more fun if you hear it in the right order. And then go listen to all the other ones.
It's
and
actually
on endless
better
repeat.
if you take these. This drops on the 27th, so these next 2 days, listen to Castle and Lost City, and then the last one. It's vital. You're not gonna get our swag if you don't, dude.
One album a day.
You
Study.
can do it.
Wise
If I can
Man-
do it, if I can lose sleep and do it, then you can too. Let's get
That's
it.
the spirit, man.
I'll live stream me listening to Castle in the Clouds. Then the next day will be Lost City, and then on release day will be the new record.
It'll be like Shia LaBeouf watching all of his
I'll
old
do
movies.
it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. This video is going to hold me to this, so I'm gonna do it. So,
Stream them for 24 hours apiece.
oh God, dear Jesus. You're gonna kill me, Joe. But go check out the Wise Man Fears because this is the quote-unquote second interview we've done. But Nathan's
And-
no
and-
longer in the band, so technically the first interview doesn't count anymore.
In that spirit, it's technically the wise man's fear. Slight misnomer. But we're named after a book series that's called by that, which is why we have to clarify.
There you go, Paul. Well, glad with the clarification here.
Hey, we've gotten the Wise Man's
Clarify,
Fury.
head ass.
Wise man's fury. The white man's fear was one of my favorites.
The White Man's Fear.
I didn't
In
want
the
to go
South,
on stage
dude.
after that mispronunciation. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
we are not.
He announced this to the venue as that in like Georgia, and I was like, ah.
Yep.
Bummer.
Almost.
The Wise Man's Fear. Go
There you
check them
are.
out. There we go. I did it. Go check them out. They're with the boys. I love these guys so much. Also, Nathan's not actually out of the band. That has been
No.
just a joke.
April Fools.
You can still go to band practice, Nathan. But go check out the Wise Man Fears. Seriously, homies of the channel, and I love them so much. Very stoked on this record. I'm so glad there's actually signed to Sharptone because your boy's been keeping that secret for centuries right now. So very stoked on that. I'm almost guaranteed that there'll be pre-orders, so make sure to go pre-order that, mother. You know you want to. You know you want to support these guys. I'm gonna go pre-order it because you boy. I got that. I still got that Wise Man Fear shirt, so that shit's worth like $9 now. So very
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
Go check them out. Links will be
Someday
below.
it'll be worth $8.50. So hold on to that.
Pre-save it on Spotify.
We're gonna
You know the drill.
Pre-save it on Spotify.
Pre-save it on Napster.
Pre-save
Get
it
that
on
Pandora link.
Napster.
Open up.
Make sure to make it.
LimeWire.
Make sure to make it one of your songs on MySpace.
It's named R. Kelly Solo on LimeWire, but if you search that term,
Make sure to
Puddle of Mud.
Make sure to LimeWire download it. Make sure to torrent it. No, I'm just kidding. Please make sure to go buy it. Seriously, these guys work their ass off, and the record, gotta say, spicy. It's a spicy meatball. You want to listen to it. I can tell you, chef's kiss, baby. Nothing but the finest, the finest Italian cuisine coming out of the wise man fears. go check them out.
Yes,
And
sir.
thanks, and go.
We promise not to keep you waiting as long next time.
Yes, please
Yeah.
don't
Boys
keep them
don't
wait. Don't keep the
And
boys waiting.
we've already been busting butts.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Well, go check them out. And thanks, of course, to Paul, Nathan, and Joe, and Tyler, and Cody, and Thomas,
who is-
and not here, definitely here, not here. Because thanks to all the guys in the Wise Man Fears. They're the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, boy.